language. And what I didn't want to do is, since we have a visual editor, I didn't want to have to make a new DSL or build an object model that didn't have oversight or wasn't validated um, by many people in a community, that didn't have other tooling to have any inconsistencies, fixed in it. They want to build something that existed already, and a lot of the others are really, really complex. So this just seemed like a natural choice, a good choice, especially since we are, we're calling services, and that's basically what this thing does for external things. Um, Anywho, so that's why. So the fragments, so maybe it's not a fragment, right? Maybe it's not a fragment, but it's I don't know, it's a little rough, but we're working the other way now, right? So we went from serverless workflow to C# code. We can do that fine, right? So the natural thing is to store this serverless workflow JSON as our intermediary language, um, and then just map that together, right? Because there's a natural. The good thing about it, another good thing about it, is you don't need to maintain a graph, right? The only let's get a more complex example. All right. So you don't need to maintain a graph, right? In this scenario here, these functions, this doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter. You can drop as many of these as you want in here, and these are just pointers, right? And then the other thing is that the actions, so this has one state, one for each state, right? So this is a loop that loops over customer.transactions and gives you, I guess, a TX transaction parameter, a transaction amount, maybe. I can't really tell what this is. But anywho, we're saying execute this action, process larger transaction if this condition is true. If it's smaller than the constant large transaction amount, then we're going to call this other service. So it doesn't matter, right? Because the way it works is, I guess it does kind of matter. The order does matter in terms of actions with conditions, because if you have 3, let's say, and this one is true, this will never get executed, even if this one would have been true, right? So that matters, but we're not building a graph, right? We're just ordering a fragment of JSON, a JSON object in a list. That is not hard. We are storing it as an ordered list, as a string, right? That's it. That's it. That's totally it. And in the UI, we're bringing out this version. We have a composed, I guess assembled is the word I want to use. We have an assembled workflow version, that a serverless workflow like this, that is made up of many fragments, but they're references to fragments, right? So what might this look like? Let's bring this in here. Let's bring this in here. So let's bring this in here. So what does this look like? So this would be we're gonna just nuke this, right? We're gonna do, let's leave that there. So we're gonna do ref, I think it's that, ref, no, it's ref $, right? So we can do something like this. Functions, banking service larger. Yeah, so we can actually just do async API. Yeah, so this captured all the information here. So we can actually do something like this. In IF for InfinityFlow, right? But you can also just use Yeah. So function ref scheme, we'll make that up. And what we'll do here is we will put the, so this is fragment work. What did we call it? So this will be this. So workflow fragment version ID. And that is it. So that's what would happen here. We would just do this. And when a user wants to define their own, they're really just making fragments and we're just referencing them. So when it's time to assemble, we just resolve all these references. And when we resolve, we speak this scheme, right? So that's what we can do, right? And we can even go a step further and we can remove these, right? Because we don't actually need these, right? But we kind of do because I want to continue working with the serverless workflow SDK and I want to stay as close to the spec as possible. There are extensions, but this is a JSON, like a JSON schema deal, or I guess a JSON thing. I don't know where it comes from, but you know, it's a standard. There's some RFC out there that explains this, right? Some spec. Anyway, that resolves these into the stuff that we did over there. And this is actually just gonna, this is the same, right? So this action, right? The action has a name. This is a, so this is a, so it's really like a nested fragment, right? So this is a for each. So this would be a component, like a visual UI component in a, like a block on a screen, right? On the canvas inside the workflow. And the way we display is by mapping the states, right? And what I mean by states is going over here. Let's find something more. So, oh yeah, credit check. All right. So remember how I said we had to maintain for other workflow things, like I guess like a graph of flow, execution flow, I guess. So with serverless workflow, you have these things called transitions. So you have states and you start, so there's a start one, right? So this workflow, the first node is check credit. So we would go here and this is a callback. I forget what callback does, but yeah, I don't remember what callback. Oh, it's an asynchronous API, I think. So we call this and then we wait for this event, I guess, and we wait 15 minutes for this event before timing out, before this workflow times out. So we'll sit here. Now, once we get this event, so we've defined the event. So again, this would be another ref to a fragment. And so when that event comes in, so this sets it up, right? Where is that defined? Oh, I guess that's not defined here. That's exercise left for the reader. All right, so this is defining an event that comes in, and that will return, activate this this callback action, or I guess callback state, and it'll feed it the response, right? So this doesn't get a response um, that it processes, at least, other than failures, right? It's gonna wait 15 minutes for this event to come in, and then it's gonna take the event payload, pass it to evaluation decision, which just happens to be the next one, but the order of this, the position, does not matter because the transition tells you where to go next. So this is like our linked list in a sense, right? This is our graph, right? It's built based on transitions versus ordinals. I guess, yeah, it's a pointer, right? So then we come in here and we have a switch statement. We have data conditions, data conditions. So this here is a fragment. And what does this compile down to? So this guy compiles down to a couple things. So this guy compiles down into an activity that calls this API based on the function ref, right? And that's over here. No, where is it? Where is it? It's in functions. Here, it's over here, credit check function, right? So this guy, oh, this isn't even defined. I don't even know where this points to, but I don't even know where this is, but it points to a function, right? And from there, oh yeah, here it is. Call credit check microservice. I don't know what exactly that ref name points to, but I guess it calls this, right? Anyway, so that happens. That's an activity. Inside that activity, we also we'll transition to another activity in Temporal, not transition, but basically we will be going in Temporal from call this API to another activity that just does a workflow dot delay async for 15 minutes, right? And I'm guessing that that's the best way to do it, but so it does that, and then what happens is we have something that receives these events, and we're going to wait for this event sync that is this credit check source, right? So what that's going to do is it's going to get the events from the broker, whatever that is, pull it from the queue. Once the credit check has been completed, that credit check microservice or whatever elsewhere, maybe it's a third-party service, is going to deliver a callback to us that will put an event into a queue, let's say, and once that event is pulled from the queue, it's then going to send the temporal workflow execution instance, which is the instance of our workflow definition that's been compiled and deployed. It's going to pass that event as a signal, right? And it's going to cancel that timeout that's happened here, right? So it's going to say, okay, we don't care about this timeout anymore. We got it. So it's, one of two things is going to happen first, right? It's like when any statement. So it's like when any, like task.when any. So we're going to wait for 15 minutes and we're going to wait for the signal to come in. Whichever one happens first is the winner. If it's the timeout, the workflow execution fails. If it's the event, then we transition to this evaluate decision. And this evaluate decision now is a switch statement, which will, so this translates to if else. This is not an activity in terms of temporal. This is deterministic code here. So this doesn't need an activity since it's deterministic. So from there, we do these, and we're going to go to start application if they're approved. Start application then calls a child workflow, right? A sub workflow. So this is going to execute another workflow called start application workflow ID, passing in the state data that we had into that. And it's going to end the workflow. It's just going to return out of the workflow and be done. That's it. Then let's go back up here. If it's rejected because the decision was denied, we go to reject application state, which is here. It's an operation, and it calls a function. So it calls an API that's defined up here, and passes it the customer, the applicant data, and then it ends. So this translates into a temporal activity that calls an API, and that's that. So really, from all of this, we have 1, 2, 3, 2 activities, and this one just starts a workflow that is like a child workflow that is asynchronously started, and this workflow does not wait for it to return, right? It just says, hey, start this application because this credit check is done, right? That flow is done. So that's what we're doing here, right? This is a component. This is a reject application component. This is a start application component. This is a switch statement component, and a switch statement has many conditions, right? Um, so this is one fragment, and then this is another fragment. So it's not a one-to-one exactly between a serverless workflow fragment, SWF fragment, and a temporal activity. It's more like there's some translation happening there to match the requirements of the two different things, right? So yeah, so that's I think this was a great example of what's happening there. Now, okay, so what happens? Let's talk about these fragments. So the fragment has embedded in it the function reference, right? So that means that we don't have to drag around this function here with the component, right? With the SWF fragment. We don't have to do that because these are dynamically created by this function ref, right? When we assemble the workflow, we'll resolve this into the correct thing. And actually, this is probably this is probably the better thing to do, like right here. Right, so we actually don't need this, right? So this guy is this. Oops. So this guy is this, and this guy is this, and that's it. This is the name of the action. This is the function that we're calling it here, and that's what's happening. I think that this is pretty solid. Um, so we don't store these. So there's this function ref. I guess that's what we got to define over here. So let's do this. Let's open preview, markdown, open preview to the side. All right, so what do we have here? We also have to do a function reference. References. So it doesn't have to, right? So it can actually just be, will this do 0? No. All right, how do we do this? Zero, zero, zero. Where's that chart? I should like print this and put it somewhere. So 0 or more, 0 or more. So a workflow fragment version. So let's actually switch that around. Yeah. So, and this is actually many. So one or more. I guess it's like this, right? Let's see what that one looks like. A workflow fragment version. So many workflow fragment versions reference function definition. And let's do our deal here. Yeah, all right. What happened? Function definition. Attribute word. Function definition. Oh, I ate this. So workflow fragment version references a function definition. And what else we got to reference? So name, description. So I'm actually just going to put so I'm just going to actually put string open API spec, open API spec. So that's our open API specification, and we're just going to put some name, and actually these will come from the open API spec. So these will come from the open API spec. We've got this guy. Now, do we version them? I feel like we should, because, you know, APIs are versioned. I don't know, but let's see. Put a comment. Oh, you can't do that here, can you? Should we version function definite? How does open API spec versioning work? So I'll have to figure that one out. So I'm going to put C comment. Interesting. How do you do this? Maybe it's like one of these dudes. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to put that for right now. Yeah. So the function definition. I guess we really don't have to version it, because every time you modify it, it would create a new definition, right? I don't know. I'll figure that out later, but it's too in the weeds right now for that. It's getting late. So fragment versions have function definitions, and it's the same for event. So it's the same thing for event. And this is, shit, what's the name of that event spec? Event cloud events. So those of you that don't know, cloudevents.io. Yeah, it is not about scheduling events with cloud software. It's, yeah, so, wow, it hasn't had a release in a while, huh? I guess it's perfect, right? Anyway, so cloud events. Yeah, there you go. So, surprise, surprise, guess what, folks? Serverless Workflow speaks cloud events. Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna just fix this here. Event definition ID, cloud event spec, and we'll just put this. All right, so an event definition. So a fragment has functions, events. Let's go look at the serverless spec. Where is it? Wow, look at this. Look how old this favorite is. Wow. That's how long ago I did this. So it sucks because it did a redirect and I can't edit the URL, but my bookmarks just grow. I don't manage them or anything. All right, so serverless workflow specification, and we're gonna see. So workflow data. What I'm looking for are, I'm looking to see where we have stuff. So these are functions. So this would be our different function ref. So that's workflow functions. Yeah, it supports all these guys, which is actually pretty cool. Using functions for expression evaluation. Oh, okay. So this is just an expression type. So, okay, no big deal. That's pretty cool. And we have states, event state, operation state. So this is like, so it's either subflow ref or event ref or function ref. Event ref, subflow ref, retry ref. Right? So you would transfer for like retries. That's pretty cool how they did that. Action data filter, condition, compensation. I got to figure out how to do compensations later. I hate that the back button is broken. So subflow. What is subflow again? Often you want to group your workflows into small logical units that solve a particular business problem and can be reused in multiple other workflow definitions. Yeah, so this is like a child workflow. So this one is child, right? And yeah, so that's subflow. So auth. Oh, we got to think about auth for a second. So there's an auth definition. Yeah. Yep. All right. So now this, let's do auth. So I feel like there's a couple of things going on here. Auth definitions. So these are, is it functions only? What is it here? So scheme, name. So it references the auth ref. So in the function. So this has to, so I guess that means that function refs have an auth ref. Oh yeah, so OpenAPI defines an authentication mechanism like bearer token or whatever, and they're saying that that overrides the function ref. That's right here. So there's a function ref. So I don't know. I'll have to dig into that a little more, but we now know that we have a functions definition. So this is a many to many. Function definition. And this would be an auth definition. I'm going to leave that without properties for now because I don't know what's supposed to go there necessarily. But what we are going to do is, let's see, how do they do it? Resource, my API key auth. What is resource? References an auth definition to be used to access the so that's not this. So an auth definition is here. Name, scheme. All right, cool. So what this is saying is none of these are secrets. Why is this here twice? Why is this different? That's a bug. So I'm going to treat all of the properties. Yeah, all of these should be, I mean, they're not all secrets, but like, who knows what people are going to shove in here. And yeah, so we're going to do, so these have to be encrypted and stored in the vault. So we have auth definition. So what we do know is that we need a property bag, a key value pair bag. So we're going to do auth definition. Oh, look at that. Yeah, sure, we could do this. I don't think that we, I mean, I guess we have to, right? We have to version all this shit. So now we've got definitions, and we then have to associate an auth definition with a so I have some notes on templating these things, right? And so we've got this auth definition, but then we've got this properties. So I'm just going to do dictionary string properties. Oh, really? Can we like not use generics? Can we not use angle brackets? Can we do this? No. Yeah, so how do you do this? All right, mermaid, let's see how we do it. Syntax and configuration. Is there a search in here? Yeah. Escape. Any codes to escape characters? Sure. Why didn't that take me anywhere? Oh, we have to use HTML encoding. So let's try. Where is it? We don't have it anymore. Oh my gosh, look at that. It actually translated it for me. Yeah, and it doesn't support it. All right. Just stick with this. And you can't have commas. Can't have spaces. I mean, I'm gonna have to look this up, but that should be good enough for right now. I think I'll remember what that is for right now. So dictionary of string of properties. Now, this is actually not really a dictionary, but what we're going to do is we're going to do some magic here. We're going to say secret reference. So yeah, so what this is actually going to be is secret reference is basically a generic type that when serialized, well, it's really just a string, right? It's going to be a pointer to a secret somewhere else, right? And that's how we're going to avoid storing secrets here. So I think what we've got to do here is yeah, so secret reference. So that's gonna, we're just gonna do some hand waving right now and say this is a secret reference to a serialized dictionary string of string, uh, dictionary of string, and that's gonna be resolved um, at runtime because that's when we pull secrets, right? So what does this mean, right? What does this all mean? Ugh. Yeah, so let's capture this. Um, let's find my notes on template. All right, so all right, so when a thing like a function definition or an event definition or an auth definition or a workflow fragment is published to the marketplace. And this includes built-in ones like the switch statement that InfinityFlow proper will publish, right? That would be like the public library of components of things, right? And some of them will be free, some won't be free, you know, those kinds of things. So, um, interesting. Did this like just die? I don't know what's going on here. Nope, just Twitch kind of sucks. I don't understand this at all. But anyway, the oh no, it did finish. This I don't understand why it finished. Did it just like drop? How come this doesn't think it ended? What is going on here? It ended a half an hour ago? Yeah, that sucks. I just lost like a half hour of good content. Oh well, I'll upload this video later on. So back to this. So when you publish an activity or workflow or whatever, it's really making a template. However, you know, as the publisher, you choose which elements of that activity get templated and therefore modifiable by consumers of the fragment. So let's say let's go back to this credit check deal. Let's go back to this credit check deal. Where was that example? Recently closed. There we go. Let's go back to this example here. So let's say we've got this guy right here, this start application. No, let's do something more meaningful. A credit check component. So using this in your workflow will allow you to do a credit check on somebody with just dragging and dropping, etc. And what happens here is now the properties that are modifiable. So this is really just under the hood, like in serverless workflow, this is a callback action. So if you were making your own fragment from scratch, you would drag like a callback widget or something like that that executes and waits, right? So you can build that many different ways, right? But let's just say we're doing the callback. So how does this work? When you're creating your own fragment that is a callback fragment, you can modify everything in here. You could choose which function gets called, what the arguments are, what the expression is for building the arguments, what event you're waiting for, or the timeout values, and where you go next, right? So now imagine this. You publish it, and it gets published as a workflow with a set of inputs and a set of outputs. And so that's what it is. You're publishing not necessarily components all the time, but depends, right? It really depends on, and I have to figure out what it depends on. But really, it's about this, right? So you can modify anything. That's the point here. Now, if I were to do this and I were to publish just this as a fragment, I would say that this can't be modified. This can't be modified. Um, this can't be modified. This can be modified by the end user. And where you go to next. What is your transition? And the end property and all those other things that don't really matter here, that aren't depicted here, right? But to the user who's purchasing or licensing rather this credit check callback function, what they're getting here is, excuse me, what they're getting here is they're getting this. This is secret sauce, right? This is secret sauce. This is secret sauce. Not necessarily secrets, right? You're paying for it, so you get to see where it's going because you'll have network metrics and visibility as part of the observability stack for InfinityFlow. But you won't be able to modify which service it calls, right? And you won't be able to modify like the icon, the description of it, like the components description. You won't be able to modify any of that stuff. So that's what it means to publish something, right? When you go through publishing, you'll mark each attribute, each property, right, of the component as being modifiable or locked. I guess locked is better, right? Frozen, disabled from modification. I don't know. We'll figure out the words later, but that's really the point there, except for like the timeout, right? Because you may want your timeout to be configurable as a user, for example, here. So that's what's happening there. And the same goes for like a workflow. When you are publishing a workflow, so let me see my notes there. All right. So when a fragment is used, in a workflow, right? The workflow author can further restrict the activities within the workflow. However, they can't remove restrictions the publisher of the fragment or workflow have made. So let's say, let's just say Equifax creates a credit check activity, which is a fragment, and they lock down all of the stuff that I just said were locked down in this activity. But then somebody else takes it and they wrap it in a workflow, and they want to provide multiple credit checks. So they have other activities, not activities, but other components that do a TransUnion credit check, and I don't remember the other one. It's been so long. Equifax, right? Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So three different activities, three different components published by three different people with three different providers, and they do similar things, but that doesn't matter what they do, right? They're they're just different in many different ways. Their implementation might be different. What they call is different. You know, maybe one's not an event, callback type deal. Doesn't matter, right? The point is that they all have different things that they've locked. And this person, this user, this InfinityFlow user, says, I want to do I want to provide a service that does credit checks for individuals on all three of the major credit bureaus. So they're going to do that, right? They're going to execute these three components. They're going to build a workflow. They're going to use a parallel state, which allows you to execute multiple things at once in parallel and wait for them all to complete, or timeout, right? And so they're going to do that, and they can use those, and they won't be able to modify those locked properties. But then they can also choose to modify, to set their own values, but they can also lock down those other unlocked properties from these activities, from these components, right? So they're choosing now to lock things down, but they can't remove restrictions, right? They can only add to the restrictions. And then they go and they publish their workflow. They'll say that this is my workflow. This is the input and the output object shape, right? This is open API spec that we're going to use to define these types for the input and the output objects. And it's all encapsulated. The user can drill down and see what these things are doing in terms of a flow to make sure, you know, that they're not doing anything nefarious. You know, again, they're paying for it. It's running in their environment, and they get to see what these workflows do. They're not necessarily totally a black box. Maybe that's a restriction property. I don't know. I don't know, to be determined. But anyway, if you can see the different components that are in that workflow that you licensed, you may not be able to modify anything within it, right? So truly just a lockdown component. That's kind of the thinking for that, and where I want this to be. So let's go back over here. So we've got this auth definition. Now, this doesn't solve our problem here as where these come from, right? So I'm thinking back to templating. So remember, we are storing these as JSON. Like, these are JSON, dude. Like, these things basically are JSON. And we build the JSON from these, like these structured things. It just makes it easier to query. When we do the assembly, we're dynamically building the JSON when we assemble the workflow. And we do that by first assembling fragments and then assembling workflows with those fragments and putting them all together, resolving the references to the event, function, and auth definitions. And now here's the deal. So here's the deal. How do we have unique values stored with these? Because these are the definitions, right? These are like published versions, right? Immutable published versions. How do we do this, right? So I think that there has to be some sort of I guess, how do we say this? So in a workflow, we have, there's a great example in the, where was it? Was it in book lending? No. Was it in, I think it was in the transaction one. Yeah, it was here. So there's this concept of like constants, right? But you don't want to store, you know, constants within code, right? These are here. So I think really what needs to happen is in the input object, I got to see if there's like another way to provide like another channel. I don't want to muck with the input object. But basically what I'm thinking is when it's time to execute the workflow, we have to retrieve these secrets when we start up the temporal worker. So that means that we need to look at the workflow and we need to resolve properties. So, and I don't mean the function references. I mean like where do values come from? Where do values come from? Go ask your parents, kids. So let's consider this for a second. Let's look at this for a second. So imagine you have yeah, but that's not what I want. Public class event definition. All right, so let's. No, that still doesn't help me. Auth definition. There. All right, so this is a class that would get generated, right? Like that would exist, and we're going to actually do a secret reference here. This is a secret reference. It knows how to retrieve the value and deserialize it and return it as an iDictionary, right? Or as a dictionary rather. And that's what this guy is ultimately. And so how does this work, right? Maybe there's an attribute. You know what? Actually, this is probably better. Secret reference. Secret ID. Yeah. So we do that, right? So we do something like that. And then let's say that in these properties, oh, this is going to kind of suck, right? So I think we're going to need another type here instead of the property string. So it's probably going to have to be property reference key, and we're gonna, so not secret ID, but this is going to be like the property name, so key. So that'd be the key name. So that would be in our dictionary, that would be here. But then we've also got in our definition of this, we're going to put not secret ID. So we're loading this dictionary from here. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe we don't do this, right? So maybe this is an type, and then yeah, so this is enum. So this is going to be reference type, so property reference type, and this is enum, and this is, look at that config map. So secret, what do we got? Secret constant. What else we got? Yeah, I think that's it. And instead of string URI, this is going to be key data, this data. So not secret, but URI. So I don't know if there's anything we have to do special with this. So let's just do URI. And then when we resolve the URI, the scheme will tell us like the secret stuff. So let's just do secret, secret or I don't know. There's probably, I wonder if there's, yeah, like I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's just secret resource scheme. Uh, so that type knows how to resolve, like based on the type, we'll have a different provider or whatever that will determine how the value of data is handled. So in the event it's a URI, we would have like this secret ID thing in here. And yeah, I think this makes more sense. It's more versatile. And it allows like better editing, and we don't need to keep the whole secret because it's not a secret, right? And I think we actually do need to do secret here because I want to use this for other things too. So URI is, we'll just do resource. And whatever this thing is will happen, right? Whether it's the function ref or whatever, I don't know. So all right, so that's where we're at right there. So we would, for each one of these items, we'll have a property key reference. And now imagine in the UI, you've got a UI that kind of looks like you add a property, right? And it's a key value pair. There's another column that says it's a, what is the type of property? Is this a secret? Is this a resource? And if it's a secret, then another column to the right in this grid will allow you, will have access to your vault, and you'll be able to choose which secret to populate there. And then if it's a resource, you'll be able to choose the resource, and whatever resource you choose will get put into data. And then if it's a constant, it's just going to store the constant. It's not. Oh wait, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? No, we don't need data. We have the value of the property. Yeah. And this is, what am I doing here? Yeah, this is this. What am I doing? So this is, that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Now we're going to do string here, right? Because we want string. And yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Yeah, and it knew exactly what I was doing. It knew exactly what I was doing. Default value. Yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So we'll hit this. This will be serialized. You don't store the actual secrets here, but rather your dictionary of properties is this. And what this allows us to do is, yeah, what this allows us to also do is, so if we're in, you know what? Locked. There we go. Okay, what else? Yeah, so that's it. We lock properties that way. And now you can actually do, so this property reference here, we can actually have a, I don't think we can have generics. Can we? Yeah, we can have generic attributes. They added that, right? C# generic attribute. Yeah, they added that. Yeah, hell yeah. So we can actually do this. Uh, ain't that something, right? So I guess this is really, we still don't have multiple class inheritance, do we now? But I guess I could just do this as an interface, right? And implement, I mean, there really is, because now we can have default, uh, default implementations, right? So we could actually just do, we could just like do this, right? And this isn't a thing anymore. And we could just do that, right? Yeah, something like that. And then public class. Yep, because we have default implementations and interfaces now. So we could actually do something like this, because now this allows us to decorate in our code gen. This allows us to decorate any of these properties. Now, how do we store this, right? Because this isn't like an serverless workflow kind of deal. Like this isn't a thing. Well, you know what? Extensions. Enhance your model definitions with additional information useful for things like analytics, rate limit, logging, simulation, debugging, tracing, etc. Model extensions do not influence control flow. They enhance it with extra information that can be consumed by runtime systems. I don't know if that's the right thing. See what these, you can define extensions in your workflow or using its top level. Even though users can define their own extensions, it is encouraged to use ones provided by the specification. Okay, so what is this now? Workflow rate limiting settings. So rate limiting, I don't know exactly how this is. I should go read this, right? Anyway, interesting. Okay. You know, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe that's not extensions. Let's see how KPI works. Oh, good. Statistical data, KPIs, workflow definitions. What? Context attribute. Where's the max cost. Oh, I mean, I don't understand exactly how, like, you still have to implement this, right? Like, this isn't implemented, right? Expected key performance indicators model that references. Yeah, I don't really understand the value here, but because I'll have to ask Tiomir. So that's extensions, right? But I think there's like a metadata thing as well. Tools and libraries. Yeah, I think this is metadata should not reflect blah blah blah. Implementations may choose to use metadata or ignore it. Note, however, that using metadata to control workflow execution can lead to vendor-locked implementations that do not comply with the main goals of this, which is to be completely vendor neutral. Huh. Yeah, I guess that would be vendor-specific implementation. So this is just data that doesn't do anything for this. So that's probably, I mean, I'm not really too concerned about vendor neutrality here, but this is kind of exactly what we need, right? So when we can add it to a function, right? Because this could be in a function reference, and here is where we would put, here is where we would put the type and data default value, and if it's locked, right? And there's our serialized thing. So it does actually live in a, it does actually live there. It can actually live there. And so, so that's where it would live in the serverless workflow spec that the compiler would read, annotate the various things, add the code to retrieve the secrets and populate the values. See, I don't necessarily think, I don't know. I think this needs more work, but all right. It's late. It's been 2 hours. I'm off to bed. Bye bye.